Pretend job interview. Hi. First time posting. See if it gets put up. And this is the correct area for my story. I applied on a job website recently for a serving position at a restaurant. I was contacted by someone through the messaging option through the site. The place was a Burmese restaurant. I ended up Googling the address and found out where it was. The next day, the person messaging me told me an address that didn't show up on Google. I thought it was odd, but oh well. Today, the interview was at 9 a.m. The restaurant being open this early was surprising to me. I use Google Maps and find the location. I am always early and glad I was. The location was not even open for business. The paper on the door said the restaurant is opening in April, and it had a completely different name than the ad had stated. I looked inside and the building looked abandoned and was very dilapidated. Okay, pretty weird. I stand off to the side to scope it out because I am having a very bad feeling that this may be some set-up trap to lure a person or girl like me into a place for an attack. Then I notice a man who looks to be high on a stimulant, wearing nice clothing, watching me. He smiles and laughs, then does this bird whistle and goes to the side of the restaurant. A few minutes later, a man in an Audi SUV shows up, looks at me, starts laughing, and meets up with the first guy. They are both around the side and I start wondering if there is a door to get in that way that I didn't know about. I start hearing the men bird whistling, and to my terror, I hear multiple other bird whistles coming from all around the block. However, I see no one. How many people are out here? Why are they hiding in the bushes? I get freaked out. I was going to tell the interviewer to do the interview outside because if I get locked in there, I know I am stuck. I ended up trusting my intuition and got the hell out of there. Nothing bad happened, luckily, because I decided to trust my gut. I feel like society tries to get women to think they are being paranoid in this kind of situation. Then, if something horrible happens, people say, gee, she should have been more careful. What was she thinking? Just wanted to share. I am unsure what to do because nothing happened. I do not know really how to approach this without technical evidence. Want to contact the job website or the police to look into it, but feel they will not care. So, weirdo interviewer at pretend restaurant, please let's not meet. So, real quick before the next one. I won't be reading Reddit comments or adding any form of commentary for this video. Most of the comments on these posts were kind of generic, like, oh my god, that was terrifying, or glad you trusted your gut, and I really wanted to keep the vibe focused on just the stories this time. This one's more for the people who've been asking for a creepier, uninterrupted story time. We'll get back to the usual style ones later, but for now, just sit back and enjoy the stories. What was she planning to do to me? One time I went to the bar with one of my friends. I had just turned 21, so I haven't been to many bars up to that point. My friend was drinking on the way to the bar, so he was already pretty drunk when we got there. When I sat at the bar, a cute girl came and talked to me and my friend. She said her name was Candace, and I noticed she had really bright red hair. I assumed she dyed it. It was pretty but unnatural. Anyway, this girl was flirting with me and my friend. She could tell my friend was already very drunk. To be honest, I played along like I was drunk already too, since it seemed to be working for my friend. I didn't know she was just trying to get free drinks, so I told her we didn't have much money. She offered to buy us drinks. She kept buying us drinks, and I started to get confused as to who she liked between me and my friend. My friend went to the bathroom. Before he came back, he was kicked out by the bouncers. He was too drunk. Candace and I went outside with him. She kept telling him to go home with her. He was so out of it that he could barely answer her. I told her he was too drunk and that I couldn't let him go anywhere. I didn't want him to wake up hungover in some random house with no car and no idea what happened. Candace kept pushing it, saying that she would take care of him, but I told her no because I had to stay with him. I was more sober than him. He was my responsibility. I told her the only way he was going anywhere was if I tagged along. I assumed she thought that I was jealous or cock-blocking, but my friend could barely stand and lost interest in Candace already at that point. She immediately started flirting with me and offered to get my friend a taxi to drive him home, and said we could go to her place alone. At this point I had a few drinks and I was pretty buzzed, so I agreed. We took my friend to the taxi and walked to her car. I slightly stumbled on the way to her car. Wow, you're pretty drunk, huh? She said, smiling as she held onto my arm. Yeah, I said. I don't know why, but I just felt slightly shy and anxious. Everything was just happening too easy for me, so I felt uneasy. We got in her car, we drove down the street. "Wanna stop at the liquor store and get some more to drink? I'll buy it, so don't worry about paying," she offered. I didn't want to drink any more than I already did. I was already buzzed and wanted to be able to carry myself throughout the rest of the night. Sometimes I made myself look stupid when I'm drunk, so I didn't want to ruin anything with Candace more than I already did earlier by telling her my friend was too drunk. I told her I was already drunk enough, but she insisted. I didn't want to seem lame, so I told her to get me a pint of liquor with some apple juice to chase it. She went to the store and came out with a lot more than just a pint. I assumed she wanted to drink more also, and that's why she got a fifth instead of a pint. On the car ride we passed the bottle back and forth, but she took tiny sips. I tried to take tiny sips, but she kept passing me the bottle and telling me to drink. I somehow managed to drink all of my apple juice and pretend to drink the bottle by spitting the liquor in the apple juice bottle. I tossed the apple juice bottle full of liquor out the window before she saw it. I didn't want her to know I was acting drunker than I was. She actually believed I was sloppy drunk when I was simply buzzed. I took a couple more sips of liquor and finished the bottle. Throughout the car ride, I called her the wrong name a couple of times to get a reaction out of her. She didn't react to it. She just kept letting me call her Carla without correcting me. For some reason, I thought she lied to me about her name initially. We drove up to her house. I pretended to trip and stumble into her front door. She helped me walk inside by holding me up. She opened her front door, which was unlocked. We walked into her house. She closed her front door and then locked it. I thought that was strange, but I assumed she didn't want anyone walking in on us. I told her that I had to use the bathroom. I walked into her bathroom, locked the door, and looked in the mirror. I just felt strange. I felt like something was off. I felt myself becoming more drunk from finishing the bottle earlier. I turned on the sink to make noise and made myself puke up the liquor I drank. I flushed and went to the sink and started drinking the tap water out of my hands to sober up. I just didn't want to be drunk, but I still wanted to hook up with Candace, so I wanted to pretend to be drunk. I turned the sink off and I could hear her talking to someone. He's drunk as hell. He can barely stand up. "You do it." Who is she talking to? And do what? I walked out of the bathroom and into the living room. The moment I stepped into the living room, I saw her walking into another room. All I could see was the back of her head, that strange, very bright red hair, go into another room. I didn't see her face or anything. I just saw her kind of walk fast into the room. The living room was pretty dark. "Hey, where you going?" I slurred like I was drunk. She walked back into the dark living room and up to me. "Let's go in my room," she said. I looked at her bright red hair, and then into her eyes. They were different. Her face was different. It was another girl with the same hair. That's when I realized it was another girl with the same wig on. It was a wig the whole time. She had changed it with the girl from earlier, for whatever reason. My heart felt like it stopped, but I tried to look like I had no idea it was a different girl. I kind of smiled at her and told her I just needed to use the bathroom one more time, and told her, "Sorry, I was so drunk." She said, "It's fine. Just hurry up in there." I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I heard her whisper something to someone again. This time, I think I heard a male voice whisper back. I honestly didn't concentrate on listening to exactly what she said. Something sketchy was going on and I had to get out of that house. I opened the bathroom window, jumped straight out of it and ran faster than I have ever run in my life. I didn't look behind me or anything. I just ran through the backyard, jumped the fence, ran through someone else's backyard, hit a road and ran toward the main road. I kept running down the main road and I saw a 24-hour convenience store. I ran into the store and stood straight at the front of the store in front of the camera. I called a taxi and went home. I tried to think about what happened that night. What was she or they planning that night? Why did she tell me a fake name? Why was she trying to get my friend and I so drunk? I thought maybe a robbery, but she kept spending money on us. She kept buying us drinks and even paid for my friend's taxi cab. And mostly, why did she wear a wig that she gave to another girl to wear? Who was she talking to? What did it mean? And what was in that room they tried to lure me into? Edit. The next day after this incident, I went back to the house with a couple of friends to see just what was going on. Nobody was there. No cars, no people, nothing. Just an empty house. I ended up finding out that the house was a summer rental, and whoever those people were, they broke into that house and used it for only that night and never came back. I kept running down the main road and I saw a 24-hour convenience store. I ran into the store and stood straight at the front of the store in front of the camera. I called a taxi and went home. I tried to think about what happened that night. What was she or they planning that night? Why did she tell me a fake name? Why was she trying to get my friend and I so drunk? I thought maybe a robbery, but she kept spending money on us. She kept buying us drinks and even paid for my friend's taxi cab. And mostly, why did she wear a wig that she gave to another girl to wear? Who was she talking to? What did it mean? And what was in that room they tried to lure me into? Edit. The next day after this incident, I went back to the house with a couple of friends to see just what was going on. Nobody was there. No cars, no people, nothing. Just an empty house. I ended up finding out that the house was a summer rental, and whoever those people were, they broke into that house and used it for only that night and never came back. Had an incredibly frightening experience last night, and wanted to know if anyone here has ever had a similar encounter. So last night, I was at a classmate's house working on a group project we have due tomorrow. I live in an apartment in the town where our university is located, and my classmate lives at his parents' house, which is in the foothills just outside of town. In order to get to the house, you have to drive along a relatively secluded and narrow two-lane road for about 5 to 6 miles. We started working on the project at about 6 p.m., and I ended up hanging around for a while after we had finished our work. So I left his house pretty late, at about 11, and started down the road back toward town. I didn't realize how tough it would be to navigate the road at night. There were no streetlights and the road was unkempt and riddled with potholes. On top of this, I had no cell service, so I had to drive very slowly to make sure I didn't blow out one of my tires since I had used my spare a couple of weeks back. I figured I was about 3 miles from the house when I rounded a tight corner and saw a pickup truck with a camper shell parked diagonally across the road. The manner in which it was parked completely impeded my path, and I couldn't drive around it because there was a gully on both sides of the road. The only way for me to go at this point was backward, where there was a pull-off that I could use to turn my car around. At first, I couldn't see inside the cab, but when I turned on my high beams, I saw that there was a man slouched over in the driver's seat, his head resting against the steering wheel, as if he had been knocked out after a bad accident. I immediately sensed something was wrong. The way his car had just coincidentally come to rest in a position that totally blocked the road was a big red flag for me. I had heard stories of people playing dead in the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars so they could rob them. I decided fuck this shit and elected to go back to my classmate's house and explain what was going on. I threw the car into reverse and kept my eyes darting back and forth between my rearview mirror and the truck. I looked and saw that I was almost to the pull-off where I could turn around. When I looked back, my heart skipped about 5 beats. The man who had been slouched over in the driver's seat was now walking toward my car at a hurried pace, while a few other men jumped out of the camper shell and started moving toward me as well. I panicked and accelerated backwards into the pull-off, which messed up the undercarriage of my car pretty badly. As I put it into drive, the guy was already at my passenger side door tugging on the handle, which thank the Lord was locked. I only caught a brief glimpse of him, but his face appeared to be scabbed and leathery, definitely a meth head or some sort of drug abuser. I sped away and didn't slow down at all until I reached the house, constantly checking my rearview mirror to see if they were following. Thankfully, they didn't tail me, and when I reached the house, I explained what had happened to my classmate, and we called the cops. I was grateful that my buddy's parents were kind enough to let me stay the night. They didn't find anyone on the road matching the description, but I filed an incident report, and they told me they would be on the lookout for similar vehicles and suspicious activity. But holy shit, I'm still so shook up over it. I keep getting the same adrenaline rush I got when I saw the guy charging me whenever I think about it. Please share similar experiences you've had, as I would appreciate a good read or a good discussion to help clear my headspace. Creepy roommate pretended a break-in. This happened at the end of the summer of 2016. To give you a bit of backstory, my boyfriend and I were both around 20. So, my boyfriend Max and I used to share an apartment with another married couple. Mind you, they were awesome. Unfortunately, Florida wasn't what they wanted, so they decided to move to Pennsylvania. Max and I started looking for people to replace them because the rent where we lived was pricey, and we didn't want to have to pay for the whole thing on our own. It was in a very nice area, but not close enough to the city, so most people that told us they would drop by to check the place out would flake last minute. Eventually, we found this person who seemed to be a very nice and laid-back girl. She then explained how she was only looking for a place for her boyfriend, Dan. Now, I tend to see people's auras when I meet them, and I always get a certain feeling when I don't like them immediately. I'm not a judgmental person in the slightest, it's just something I feel and can't help. I did not like this person straight off the bat, but I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt because everyone else seemed to be okay with him, so I thought I might be wrong, and I was hoping I was. As the time went by, said Dan started being super loud, invited people over on weeknights till 4 a.m. playing music loud enough for it to sound like it was being played from our room, etc. Other annoying shit too, and being beyond disrespectful, especially to me. Max wouldn't do anything about it, and I'm kinda glad because I know Dan would have wanted to fight him or something. Dan was 22 at the time, but had the mentality of a 12-year-old. Side note, we later found out that Dan had previous mugshots for shoplifting and other stuff. He also threatened to get me beaten up several times. I just wanted to give you a bit of insight on Dan, so you understand what is coming. Buckle up. It was a Wednesday night. I got home at 5:30, and as I was walking upstairs and almost to the 3rd floor, which is where we lived, I saw him coming out of the apartment. But I didn't say anything, because I don't like him, so I mostly ignored him. But he started yelling at me and telling me to look at the apartment. I looked inside from the doorway, and I saw nothing wrong, so I asked what he was talking about, and in a still angry voice, he claimed that we had been robbed, and that he had also just gotten home to this. But I saw all the furniture is there and whatnot. So I'm thinking he was on one of his drugs. He usually was. I came in, and I did notice that my Wii U is gone, but the rest of my consoles were there. GameCube, PS3, Xbox, etc. So at this point, I was already suspicious of him. I tried to keep calm as much as I could, and I called Max to see how far from home he is. We usually both get home around the same time. As I'm calling, Dan yelled at me again that he had called the cops and they were on their way. And in these exact words, he said, "Do whatever you need to do because the police are on their way." When he told me that, I immediately knew he had been home for a while because he must have had time to hide all his weapons and drugs and God knows what else he had. Within 5 minutes, the cops were pulling in and so was Max. One officer went upstairs with Dan and Max to write down everything that was missing and the other stayed downstairs. I stay with him just chatting. According to Max, we are missing a lot in our room, but Dan is missing only his PS4. I did ask him at last if it was possible to search Dan's car, and I also said if he needed to search my or Max's car, we'd be okay with it. He said it wasn't necessary, but agreed to search Dan's car. The officers didn't seem to like Dan very much right off the bat either. Once they all came back downstairs, officers asked Dan if they could search his car and that they also needed his ID. He said he was okay with them searching his car, but he had to get his ID and keys from the apartment. Max and I followed him upstairs. We saw him get his wallet and keys and he left the apartment. We don't want to be nosy and stay downstairs while they search his car, so we stayed in the apartment. A few minutes go by, and he's still not downstairs with the cops, so we started looking around the neighborhood, but he had already vanished. How convenient. But, since he had agreed that they could search his car, and in no moment said they couldn't, they went ahead and started looking if the car was unlocked. And it fucking was. We found all of our stuff in his car, one of our 2 3DSs that were missing, our PS4 controller. We had no PS4, but we used it to play PC games, Max's laptop, some Wii U games, etc. The next morning, I put all of his stuff out by the dumpster and had a locksmith change our locks. I thought of putting a restraining order on him, but ended up never going through with it. A few weeks later, we saw his car parked outside a few yards from our building, but we pretended like we didn't see him, and we just watched him from our room. 911 ready to be dialed. Eventually, he just left. So, annoying creepy roommate, let's not meet again. Original resident is fixated on me. Okay, let's start from the beginning, shall we? I work in the leasing office at a property in Texas. I also live on site. We have about 400 apartments and take up 2 sides of a street. I live across the street in the very back and try to keep to myself. I do not like for residents to know that I live there. About 2 months in, a woman and her 2 grown sons leased an apartment with us. The sons are twins. One is special needs. The other is, well, different. He has a very active imagination and is very focused on sex. Almost immediately after they moved in, things started getting weird. The first encounter. One day, I was crossing the street after work to go home. As soon as I reached the other sidewalk, I heard a voice call out, "Hey, yo, Raquel." I turned toward the voice, which I realized was coming from the bus stop at the end of the street. I didn't recognize who it was until I got a little closer. Who the fuck is that? I think to myself. We meet face to face, and I realize who it is from when he moved in. I knew he was a little weird, so I was trying to keep my distance while still being polite. He's easy to piss off, and I do not know what he is capable of, but I don't want to make him think that there is anything behind the polite hello. He starts telling me that I look just like his baby mama, who lives in North Texas. Then jumps to a different subject about how he had just run all the way from downtown to here, then decides to tell me his entire family history, naming all of his cousins and home bars, rambling on and on about essentially nothing. I haven't said anything other than, oh, uh-huh, and okay. I keep taking steps backwards to indicate that I'm trying to leave, but he keeps talking and moving closer to me. As I'm trying to leave, I notice that he has a huge boner. He was wearing basketball shorts, as always, so it was pretty difficult to hide. This creeps me the fuck out, and I, somehow, managed to get away from him. He sat at the bus stop staring at me as I walked away, and I didn't want him to know that I lived there, so I just kept walking down the street to make it look like I lived elsewhere. Every now and then I would see him around the property, or he would come to the office and talk to me, and it was very uncomfortable. The leasing office had a hallway leading to the manager's office, the copier, and the package room. There was a door on it too, which came in handy quite a bit. His visits got to the point where every time I saw him walking up to the office, I would run and hide in the back and let the other staff deal with him. He wasn't creepy toward them, and they knew the situation, so it was cool. Cut to December. Our office was being remodeled, so we were using our business center as a temporary workspace. It is only one room, there is only one way in or out, and no place to hide. I was alone in the office one day, and who should come walking in but my worst nightmare. He needed to borrow our copy of his mail key because he misplaced his, or didn't have one, or whatever. We have to take an ID in order to release keys, and he didn't have his, so he had to go to his apartment, get the ID, and come back. In the time that he was gone, I set up my phone on my coworker's desk and started recording video in case any crazy shit happened, so I would have the evidence. He noticed the tattoo on my shoulder and commented on it, asking, "Is that your name, or why in the hell would I have my own name tattooed on myself?" I tell him that it is my grandmother's name, which sends him into this whole spiel about how he has his grandmother tattooed on him, and he is an artist and he draws people's faces. He leaves to go check his mail, then returns a few minutes later. However, when he returns, he has added something to his ensemble. He now has a pencil behind his ear. I suppose to make him look like more of an artist. Then he said he was going to draw my face, but I have to send him a picture so he can look at the image of me. He said he would draw me and bring the picture to the office later that week. Edit. I did not send him a picture. Months go by, no picture. I was walking through the pool to go walk to an apartment, and he catches me in the pool area. Fuck. No escape. He presents me with, well, I don't really know what to call it. It's me. Or, I guess, how he sees me. The picture was drawn on lined notebook paper, in pen, and looked like he threw it together in 3 minutes. He drew me black. I am white. Wearing a short, tight dress. Not something I would wear. Legs are 2 different sizes. Carrying a purse with a Texas on it. That's not an item I own. It was very creepy. I keep it on my fridge to remind myself that I am not safe. Upon closer inspection of said drawing, I noticed that he drew nipples on it under the dress. I thought, oh my god, did he originally draw it naked? The next day, I talked to the maintenance man about it. He says that he did originally draw it naked, but he decided to put clothes on it because giving it to me like that would be too forward. What the actual fuck? Another day, I was walking out of one of the pool gates and he was walking in through another. I saw him out of my peripheral, but didn't acknowledge him because, well, you get it. He says, "Hey yo, Raquel," twice in a very low voice. I am hard of hearing, so I can get away with pretending I didn't hear someone. Apparently, this made him angry. The reason I know this is because he talks to one of our maintenance staff about me regularly. That person relays the weird, creepy, delusional shit that he says about me. According to him, I was very rude, and he don't play that where he's from. The next few times I saw him, he had this deranged look in his eyes, like he was disgusted by me. It also kind of looked like he wanted to hurt me. A few weeks go by and he apparently gets over being mad and resumes being the creepiest motherfucker alive. The maintenance man tells me that he claimed to have met my boyfriend and that he's a cool dude, so he's gonna back off. I asked my boyfriend if he had ever met him and he said no. The maintenance man tells me that he claims to have met my parents when they stopped in for a visit and they were really nice, cool people. I asked my parents if they spoke to or saw anyone while visiting me at work. They also say no. I don't know when or how he could have met them or even seen them. I never saw him around when they were here. I have confirmed from multiple different people that were there that he was nowhere around. Is he hiding in the fucking bushes? Recently, I decided to use our fitness center late at night. The fitness center has big windows that overlook the second pool on my side of the property. While I'm on the treadmill, which is in front of one of these windows, he appears, staring at me through the glass, waving at me, watching me. I pretend there is a glare on the window and that I didn't see him. He disappears into the dark shadows in the pool area and I continue my workout. The next day, the maintenance man tells me that he talked to our friend and he could not stop talking about how he saw me in the fitness center. He went into detail about what I was wearing, how form-fitting it was, and how sweaty I was. Overall, creepy shit that gave me the chills. I avoid the fitness center and use my real gym to avoid seeing him again. A few days go by and my informant, the maintenance man, tells me that my stalker was wondering why I stopped going to the gym. Apparently, ever since that fateful night, he had been returning to the pool around the same time to wait for me, so that he could watch me work out again. Fucking nope. He starts to show up at the office more frequently, and I have to avoid him. Friday, he is sitting in the pool area by the office, directly behind where my desk is. There is a huge window behind me. I turn to get something out of my cabinet and catch him staring at me. He waved. I flashed a nervous peace sign and then proceeded with my business. He is not in swimwear but rather fully dressed. He has his notebook with him and is frantically drawing something. I think, great, here comes another picture of me, but this time in workout clothes. Nope. My coworker went to put up the golf cat and close the cabana. She has to go through the pool area to do this, so she got a glimpse of what he was drawing. A cross with my name going down the middle. According to him, I asked him to draw a tattoo for me. So that's what he was doing. Drawing a tattoo for me that has my own name on it. It's bad enough that it is a cross, but with my name, that would burn my flesh. He says he's going to give it to me the next day. The next day, he didn't show up. I am not sure when I asked him to draw me a tattoo, but I'm pretty sure it was fucking never. 2 weeks pass and I think that maybe he isn't going to give me the drawing and enough time has passed that he gave up and I could use the fitness center again. My friend and I went around 8 p.m. and we didn't see any signs of him, so we went ahead with our workout. I was flipping over to do leg raises on my right side, which caused me to face the door. Chills engulf my entire existence and my heart stops for a second. He is standing directly across on the phone staring at me through the door. I start to panic and find a place to hide from view. Peeking around the corner, I see him turn and walk through the outside hallway behind the leasing office, his normal route to his apartment. Hoping that he wouldn't come back for a while, we continued our workout. I keep glancing out of the windows every few seconds to make sure he isn't there. He reappears, still talking on the phone, but this time he starts pacing around the fitness center very slowly, looking through the windows with this creepy-ass side glance, like I wouldn't be able to see him creeping. I keep trying to hide from view, and I'm waiting for an opportunity to get the fuck out of there. I'm hiding in a corner, and he walks up to the locked door and fucking knocks on it. He continues to knock for a solid 3 minutes, then finally leaves. He walks down the street a little way, and I take the chance to run the fuck back to my apartment as fast as I can. Today, my informant tells me that Stalker said I wouldn't let him into the fitness center for a drink of water. He said that he had just run all the way from a popular place nearby, and he just wanted water, but I wouldn't let him in. Then, he switched up his story and said that he was trying to give me the drawing of the tattoo that I had asked him for. 1. He didn't run from anywhere, he was wearing flip-flops. 2. He had been standing still for a good 30 minutes before coming to the fitness center. He had gone back to his fucking apartment where there is water, so why the fuck would he go all the way to the fitness center for water? 3. He didn't have the drawing with him, he didn't have pockets on what he was wearing, and it wasn't in his hands. He also claims to have talked to my neighbor who lives across from me, and he said that I am a weird, crazy girl and he should stay away from me. That shook me to my core, because if that is true, then he knows where the fuck I live. I knocked on my neighbor's door and asked him about it. He says he has no idea what I am talking about. Luckily, this Friday is my last day at this property as I am transferring to a new one closer to where I want to live. I will still live here for 2 more months. I can't wait to leave. Someone I went to high school with lived a fake life on the internet using my identity without me knowing for years. Hail, I'm pretty new to Reddit, so forgive me if there's a more appropriate subreddit for this story. I've been listening to compilations on YouTube while drawing lately. One just came up about stalkers, and it pushed me over the edge to write out one of a few stories I've been thinking about sharing here for a while now. First off, this story happened almost 10 years ago. I'll jump right in because it's long. I got home from work one day and logged into Facebook to find a message from someone I didn't know. It was too long ago to remember verbatim what was said, but it was along the lines of, "Hey, Lot Lizard, I know you have no idea who I am, but I've been trying to decide what to do for a few days and figured I had to let you know what's been going on. Someone has been catfishing me using your identity for over 2 years, and I just found out about it last week." The sender of the email was clearly pretty shaken up and, understandably, was experiencing a mix of emotions. According to her, she had met the imposter online a little over 2 years prior to her writing this, and that they had been engaged in a pretty intimate long-distance relationship for the majority of that time. The imposter had created a Facebook and had over time reposted almost all of my photos with their own captions to them, including a good amount of art I'd drawn that they took credit for. Haha. They created fake profiles for a good amount of my close family and friends, so they could comment on the photos of themselves to make the profile seem legit. The funniest part to me is that although most things in my real life seem to be mirrored in this fake profile, I, straight male, was instead portrayed as trans. I think the main reason for this was that the sender of the email and the imposter would actually speak on the phone, and the imposter turned out to be female in the end and therefore needed a reason to justify her more feminine-sounding voice. The sender of the email was justifiably both angry and creeped out and wanted to find the catfish. She started asking me a lot of questions about my life, but phrasing them like, "Is your sister's name X, and did you go to redacted high school?" Some of them were clearly information that anyone could glean from a quick browse of my profile. But then she asked, "Is your best friend Y?" Which struck me as odd, since, despite this person actually being my closest friend and who I spend the most time with, we have barely any Facebook photos together, and most are from a long time ago. Then she asked, "Were you adopted? And are your half-siblings' names Y and Z?" Which sealed the deal for me, since I knew for a fact I'd never posted about being adopted online. The sender of the email already had an idea that this person had known me in real life, but this confirmed it for me. The sender of the email had contacted me shortly after confronting the imposter for the first time. I guess after 2 years, they'd finally become suspicious of the fact that the imposter wouldn't show their face. I have no idea how it took this long for them to figure out that they were being played, but I'm glad they finally decided to give the ultimatum of show your face or I'm cutting you off. I'm pretty sure this is the point where the imposter admitted to being a catfish and that she'd been using the identity of someone she had a crush on in high school before hanging up. I was given the URL so I could look through the profile myself, which was up for about 2 days after I saw it before it was all removed. It was definitely really bizarre. The imposter had posted more than I ever had on Facebook, and it genuinely seemed like they'd lived a pretty involved double life online as me. Almost everyone I posted photos with on my real profile would then have their own fake profiles created that had enough content to be genuinely convincing, so they could be tagged in and validate these new photos. Some of these profiles seemed to have gone and made their own real friends as well, and I wondered if any of those were used to facilitate even more online dating deception. Either way, the amount of time that this person had spent fabricating their alter ego's online presence was pretty shocking. The whole time I'd been crawling down this Facebook rabbit hole, the sender of the email was looking through my real profile. After a while, she sent me a message saying, "Did you take these photographs?" and showed me what I remember as black and white photos of a barn or something. I hadn't, which was weird since everything else on the fake profile originated with me, and she'd noticed the discrepancy. We both tried reverse image searching with no luck. Then, either through a stroke of genius or somewhat suspiciously, I really couldn't tell. She thought to flip the fake number the imposter had written into the fake Facebook profile around in reverse, and a Google search came up with a landline that belonged to the home address of a girl that I'd gone to high school with. Real me was Facebook friends with real imposter's profile, so we both went snooping around and found the photo that she'd claimed I'd taken, which pretty much confirmed to me that this was the imposter. I'm pretty sure there were more indicators to the sender as well, but I can't remember. I thought about messaging her for a while, but decided that it probably wouldn't lead to anything good. At the time, my thoughts were definitely, let's not meet. I talked a few times with the sender of the email just to try and decompress a bit, but honestly just wanted to distance myself from the situation and also had my suspicions about the sender as well. I figured maybe it was imposter's one last-ditch effort to try and talk to me. Although when it was all over, the sender seemed to be eager to leave this all behind as well, so maybe not. Either way, it was a really strange experience. I felt mostly freaked out and violated, but I guess there was a small part of me that was flattered by it. I had a lot of mixed emotions. The weirdest part to me is that I'm a really approachable person, and would have definitely been willing to talk and probably be friends if this person had just approached me instead. Although I'm still not sure if this was done out of an obsession for me or if this person felt like I was just a suitable image to base this fabricated persona off of. I remember talking to her probably twice throughout high school and really didn't have a very good idea of who she was other than a quiet hipster girl. If either person involved reads this, I'd definitely be happy to talk now. It's been years, but I've gone from being very put off to always wondering why this person chose me over a myriad of other, more attractive or interesting people online to base their other life off of. According to the sender who contacted me, she'd probably spent more time online pretending to be me than she actually did going about her own life. I have a tumultuous history of addiction and have had plenty of my own escapes, which is why it's always fascinated me that someone would want to pretend to live someone else's life as a means of doing that. Because, at the end of the day, the person pretending to be me had no idea that I spent my time daydreaming of being a different person as well. Thanks for reading. Update-ish. For anyone still interested, I recently spoke to a good friend who told me that while they don't know the perpetrator personally, they do know they identify as non-binary now. Which to me sort of confirms my suspected motive, which was to explore their sexuality through another identity to one degree or another. But I'll probably never know for sure. My friend turned out to be an internet predator. This is a long story, so sit back. To give you some background, I'm from a city in the northeast of Scotland in the UK. What happened here didn't just affect me, but also two close friends who, for the purposes of this story, we will call Debbie and Joe. We all used to work for Virgin Megastore. I started there back in 2003, Debbie joined in 2006, and Joe joined us in 2007. The entire staff of the store, for the best part, were all close friends. We were all music and movie nerds, so shared the same interests and sense of humor, etc. Every year over the Christmas period, we would take on temporary staff as extra help for the volume of customers we would get at that time of the year. In 2007, one of our temps was Rory. This is his real name. Most of us hit it off with him brilliantly. Young guy seemed really passionate about music, especially Pink Floyd, which was a big win with Joe, who was one of the greatest guitarists I've ever met, and myself, who grew up on Pink Floyd through my parents. Plus, Rory was a budding filmmaker, and his love of movies seemed to match his love of music, so we would have a lot to chat about and became friends very quickly. It was rare to keep in touch with the work temps post the Christmas period, but Rory was an exception. He didn't live in the same city as the rest of us, but kept plenty of contact through text and social media, and would come through to the city to hang out from time to time. Moving forward to Christmas time 2008, by this point Virgin Megastore had become Zavi Entertainment. Remember them? And Rory came back to work with us as a temp, in particular with me. I ran the stockroom in the store, which was the busiest place at Christmas time, and had a history of not great people to help for how much work would need done. So, I was happy to be getting someone I knew would work hard, and that I could have banter with. He could be a bit annoying trying to force different live versions of the same Pink Floyd song he'd found on the internet. As I said, I love Pink Floyd, but I love a lot of music. Nevertheless, I just figured, he's young and he's passionate, but he's cool. Around this time, he started to put together a self-made Pink Floyd documentary, which he interviewed me and Joe for. And to be honest, he did a fucking great job given the limited tools that he had. Chavi closed in February 2009 due to the global credit crunch at the time. All the Chavi staff and Rory kept in touch. We'd all become very close working there, like I said. Fast forward to summer 2010. We had a Zalvi reunion night out, which Rory organized. Most of us that still lived in the same city managed to make it along. Joe had moved to Glasgow at this point. It was a really fun night out, and Rory stayed at my place. I should point out at this point, Rory was preparing to go to America for his second year working as a camp counselor for Camp America at Camp Wigwam in Maine, Ohio. Since Chavy closed, I'd gotten a new job doing the same thing at another entertainment retail store, and that Christmas, Rory came to work there as a temp, which I was initially fine with. Moving into 2011, and Rory starts to raise red flags, although at the time I didn't see it clearly. He claimed that while in America, he'd gotten a job helping with editing and camera work on the show Burn Notice. At the time, I was like, wow, that's cool, man. Well done. It didn't seem unbelievable, given I knew he had talent in filmmaking. To coincide with this, he claimed he was working for Camp America in Florida, which is what led to him working on Burn Notice, where it was at that time filmed. Then, when he was back in Scotland in 2011, it was time for another Xavi reunion, which Rory had to be in charge of, which bothered me as he technically didn't work there when we closed and, like I said, was only a temp. I got sickened with him posting constantly on Facebook about essentially what was just some old friends going to the pub. Again, I was just like, yeah, he's young and easily excited. He's harmless, though. Then another red flag was raised. Rory and another friend who shared an interest in filmmaking were talking about doing a film in the city. They spent the whole day looking at locations, and afterwards, when I spoke to Rory, he was like, yeah, we're going to do this, and this, making it sound like they had some exciting ideas. Then, when I spoke to my other friend about it, he told me, all Rory did for the whole day was ask me about my favorite directors. It was a complete waste of time. Made me think, he's young and excitable and has a tendency to exaggerate, but he's harmless. Move into 2012. Debbie, who I mentioned at the start of this story, became a closer figure in his life. Debbie is a nearly 6-foot-tall blonde bombshell. At the time, one of the nicest people you could ever meet with an amazing sense of humor. We became super close when we worked together, but it was always totally platonic. I always looked at her in a more sibling way. She would come round to my place for dinner and to watch movies, and I knew all her close friends and a few family members herself, and Rory went to the cinema a few times and hung out afterwards. Absolutely nothing wrong with that for now. Move on to Christmas time. Rory's back as a temp for the 3rd year in a row, and by this time he has started to annoy the other staff. While on lunch, he'd sit and brag about all the TV shows he worked on during his summers in the States. Burn Notice, Criminal Minds, and The Wire. Unfortunately, I didn't hear about this at the time, because people knew I was friendly with him. They didn't want to seem like they were talking shit about him, as the staff in this job also all got along famously. On a personal note, talking with him at work became a bit weird. He started talking to me in a really smug and condescending tone, which, given that I'm 6 years older than the dude, and had a hand in him getting his temp jobs every year, and thought I was his friend, I didn't appreciate it. Then, around this same time, there's another Chavy night out due. Rory, Debbie, Joe, who was visiting from Glasgow, myself, and a few others. The day before the said get-together, keeping in mind I'm pissed about how Rory is behaving, I get a text from him saying, "Hey man, the plan for the night out tomorrow is to go to a pub quiz, your favorite." Now, I don't go to pub quizzes for tedious personal reasons, and all these friends knew this, so Rory was essentially implying the rest of the guys had planned to go to something I wouldn't go to, which I didn't, as I was super pissed about that text. I kept quiet about it from the others, even though I should have shown how devious he was, because as it turns out, those guys didn't go to a pub quiz, and there was no intention to. The next day, Joe comes into the shop to speak to me since I'd missed the night out. The whole time I'm talking to him, Rory is standing next to him in a defensive stance, answering everything I asked Joe like he was his fucking spokesperson, which was infuriating because I was at work. I couldn't lose my shit, and Joe is happy-go-lucky. He didn't even notice what Rory was doing. Rory was obsessed with Joe because of his talents as a guitar player, to the point of it becoming unhealthy. It was around this time that Debbie started to sense I was having a problem with Rory, and it was true. Contact with him would trigger me to get anxious or angry because I knew there was something amiss. But Debbie and Joe were constantly just fooled by his false charm, and that's why I kept tolerating him, because I loved those guys and didn't want to be the cause of drama. In early 2013, Rory makes out his dad has a life-threatening stroke, which he survives, but leaves him incredibly disabled. This subsequently turns out to be a lie and a tool to get sympathy from Debbie and Joe. Moving forward to 2014, Joe moves back to town from Glasgow into Debbie's spare room, and this is where Rory really starts to phase me out from the group. Despite having recently hung out with me and me having put him up at my place, which I had done several times over the years at this point, He takes Debbie, Joe, and another ex-savvy friend to 3 different Prince gigs around the country. Initially, I was super pissed, but in hindsight, I'm relieved. It was Rory that paid for all the tickets for those gigs, which was another red flag. Have to point out that when he wasn't working with me as a temp over Christmas or in America over the summer working for Camp America and various TV shows, he was making out he was a freelance photographer and video editor, which would be fine, but he didn't have a website, a Facebook page, or anything else as far as I could see to contact him to do said work. Taking that into account and the fact he's throwing cash to go to concerts around the UK, I was concerned about where his money was coming from. Following the Prince gigs, I had blocked him on social media as his posts. And comments on other people's posts were just annoying, constantly undermining people on what they're saying or arguing with folks having a different opinion to him. Debbie took issue with me blocking him and stuck up for him. With hindsight, she'd been groomed by him and had rose-tinted glasses on when looking at him. I caved and got back in touch with him, even though I know now I should have walked away from them all. But like I said before, I dearly loved Debbie and Joe and didn't want to lose their friendship, even though I knew deep down there was something bad about Rory. Throughout 2014, Debbie and Rory got super close. Anyone that didn't know them seeing Facebook pics would think they were a couple. Over the next 2 years, my contact with these guys started to drift. Rory would come round to my place for a bit, and then when leaving, be like, "I'm away up to darling Debbie's. I would invite you, but you're not one of the 3 amigos." A lot of the time, he wasn't actually going there, it would turn out. He even came to my place to stay the night once, saying he needed to catch a flight to the States in the morning to a video editing job. Then it would turn out he was just going back to the village he lived in at his mum's house. Eventually, I walked away quietly. I took Debbie, Joe, and Rory off of newsfeed and hid any Facebook posts I made hidden from them. I figured if I see any of them in the street, I'll be polite and just get away. As soon as possible. I started to investigate Rory's claims about his time in America. I relayed them all to a friend and his flatmate, who himself had lived in America for a long time. They both told me, "Nah man, there's no way he could be doing all that shit," which is true. If you go to America to work for Camp America, that's all you're allowed to do, and with a bit of research, I found the camp Rory actually worked at, proving he never did Camp America work in Florida. During this time, I had friends who would still follow him on Facebook out of intrigue. They would ask me, where is his money coming from? Rory was going to stadium and arena concerts around the UK at least once a week. Some of these gigs cost as much as £200 a ticket, not to mention travel costs and accommodation. I knew something was up. I knew he wasn't involved in drugs. He would claim he made money from YouTube, but his channel barely had any subscriptions. And plus, all his vids were of copyrighted material. So there was no way he was making money that way. I did wonder if he was making money from editing. He was avoiding paying tax. That's the only thing I could think of. Believe me, if I could have afforded a private detective to investigate this guy, I would have. During all this time, Debbie and Joe are hanging out with and posting how great he is, etc. on Facebook. Despite the fact I found Rory had a second Facebook account where the profile pic was of him and Debbie. This was a secret account and I took a screenshot and showed Debbie, but she was just like, "Oh, isn't that his American account? Sorry Debbie, but you were really fucking stupid." Now let's fast forward to October 2018. By this point, I've severed contact with Rory completely, missed Debbie's wedding the previous year, where Rory was a bridesman, and haven't seen Joe in a good while either. I'm back at work after lunch for about 5 minutes. Then my friend, who is on her luncheon in the staff room, comes running through to where I am. Hey, have you heard Rory was in court?" Which in itself was initially shocking. I was like, "What? For tax evasion or copyright infringement?" "No," she said, "for making videos of little kids." Between January and November 2017, he was pretending to be a girl online using YouTube and Omegle to groom young boys. Once I was told what he'd done, I was in an adrenaline-fueled rage for the next 17 hours, just so pissed off that I'd been right. He was a bad guy, but I just couldn't prove it. I knew my friends had been duped, not to mention all those poor kids that got abused by him. As for his inexplicable income, I really think he was selling the videos he was making on the dark web for Bitcoin profit. He was the first person ever to mention the dark net to me, but in a way of like, "Oh, never go to the dark net." He pled guilty and got 3 years and 9 months, along with a 5-year sexual harm prevention order, and will be on the sex offenders register for the rest of his life. Thanks for listening. I'm still in touch with Joe, although he's a super busy guy these days. Debbie, unfortunately, I'm not in touch with now. I know she was mortified by the revelations, but she's married and happy, so I'm just glad she saw the truth eventually, even though it took something so heinous to do so. And that's all for today's Sinister Encounters. These kinds of stories always remind me why trusting your gut is so important. Some of these situations could have ended way worse. Thanks for hanging out with me through these creepy Let's Not Meet posts, and if you enjoyed them, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts below. I'll see you in the next one.